Life is precious, and we all have the opportunity of living it to the fullest. Unfortunately, so few of us know how to manage it all. How do we account for our opportunities? How do we account for our time? How do we account for our relationships, health, spirituality, homes, finances, influence, and careers? How do we account for the one life we have to live? I am so glad you asked. In this program, you will find answers to all of these questions and more. Welcome to the Account for Your Life podcast with your host, the healthy accountant himself, Jay Moore.
What's happening, everybody? I want to welcome you back to another episode of the Account for Life podcast. Jay Moore here, the healthy accountant, helping you to account for your life. Guys, here's what we're talking about. Look, the one mistake that's costing Christians everything. And today, I'm going to share with you a case study that I've been involved with this week. It's not really Christian, it's business, but we're going to relate it to Christians. We're going to look at what Jesus said about this. I talked about this week on a training that I did, but I think it's going to be super important when it comes to discovering how not to make big mistakes when it comes to our life and our business. So guys, thanks for joining me. Guys, today's podcast is brought to you by, it's not brought to you by who you think it's brought to you by. Today, the podcast is brought to you by Next Level Faith. Next Level Faith is a ministry. It's a platform that we started back in 2019. 2019. And we recently published a book in 2020. It's called Next Level Faith, Moving Mountains in Uncertain Times. And so at nextlevelfaithglobal.com, you can go and pick that book up. That book is sure to help you to see faith in a different space. You know, we've got case studies and we've got stories of people who live through next level faith situations in their life that you want to read and you want to actually get motivated and inspired by reading this book. Just a wealth of information that's sure to help anybody that's looking to up-level their faith, anybody that's looking to really to get through these uncertain times, because times are uncertain, right? Like you never know. You wake up today and you hear about somebody passed away. You're going to need next level faith to deal with a lot of these issues, a lot of these things that's popping up. So go to the website, nextlevelfaithglobal.com to pick that book up. So guys, and if you know anybody, look, share that page, share that website. This is our ministry. This is how we are. Look, the job in life is to help people. So this is our ministry, nextlevelfaithglobal.com. Check it out. Go buy the book, and we appreciate you. Thank you so much. So guys, let's get into what we're talking about today. And we're talking about this mistake. There's a mistake. So recently I was engaged with someone who's purchasing or buying into a franchise, a burger franchise, nice one. And, just kind of came into it. It was interesting how I got involved with it. So I'm just going to kind of share some of the things that I noticed inside of what was taking place, with when the person made the decision to actually get involved. So if you've ever heard me talk on this podcast, you may have heard me say something like accounting is everything. Have you ever heard that? Accounting is everything. Accounting is everything. And when I say accounting is everything, what I mean is, accounting is something that you need every day when it comes to your life, because you're going to have to count something and you're going to have to monitor something. And accounting is a way that you do that. So looking over what was going on, why would someone start a franchise? Someone would start a franchise because everything is already done, meaning the concept is done, the product is done, the success of the product is pretty much done. And so you would start a franchise for this reason. But I'm going to go to a word that I read this week that Jesus said, and I want to share this word with you because I think it's super important. And I'm going to share the Bible. I'm going to share my screen with you so you can see what I'm seeing. How about that? Let's go ahead and share that. So this is found in Luke chapter 14, and we're going to start at verse 28. And here's what it says. It says, for which of you intending, think about this, which of you intending to build a tower sitteth not down first and counteth the cost, whether he has sufficient enough to finish it? I want you to think about what this is saying. What this is saying is you must now account. Now here's the thing. Prior to this whole passage that Jesus is talking about, what he's talking about is the cost of being his disciple. Think about this. The cost of being a Christian, the cost of being a business owner, the cost of being a family man, someone who's married, the cost of doing anything. You must first sit down and you must first count the cost so that you can see that you can finish it. And it's interesting because yesterday we were having a call, with my client and an investor, and the investor is talking, and the investor's like, hey, let's make sure we have all the costs accounted for. Now, this person's not even an accountant, right? So I love the fact that this person's thinking like, hey, I'm not going into a deal unless we've counted everything up and we have it already. Because now let's go ahead and read in verse 29 what he says. I think this is going to be big. Verse 29, it says, lest haply after he hath laid the foundation and he is not able to finish it, all that behold it will begin to mock him. All right, so check this out. Unfortunately, yes, the client started the process and he hasn't finished. It's been some time. Luckily, they have something covering the sign of this particular place, so no one knows, what's supposed to go in there. But here's the thing: when you don't count, what happens is you start something. And then, oh shoot, I can't finish. And then you will be mocked. And that's exactly what my friend, what the investor was talking about. He says, why would we start and we don't have enough? He says, because that doesn't make any sense. Now I'm going to get to the Christians in just a second, because the Christians have accepted, we got the grace, we're experiencing this good news that we have. But we have not counted. All right, let's go in verse 30. It says, saying, this man and woman began to build and was not able to finish. Or what king going to make war against another king sitteth not down first and consulted whether or not he'll be able with the 10,000 to meet him that cometh against him with 20. So think about it. If the king is going to go to war, why in the world is he going to go to? He says, I can't beat 20,000. Because then he's going to say, or else, it says, or else, while other is yet a great way off, he sendeth an ambassador and desired conditions of peace. Because then he's going to like, look, we got to make peace. There's no way we can win. It's no sense in losing life. It's no sense in going out and we cannot actually do what it is that we said. So likewise, whosoever he be of you that forsaketh not all that he have, he cannot be my disciple. I want you to think. All right, let's stop sharing here. All right, I want you to think about this. And let's get rid of that. We're going to get rid of it. Don't forget, get the book, Next Level. If you haven't already gotten this book, get the book, Next Level Faith Global. Next Level Faith at nextlevelfaithglobal.com. Thanks so much. So I want you to think about this. Jesus is talking about the cost of discipleship. But we could put this into business, and we can put this into marriage. We can put this into, to anything that we do, right? How many of us and how many people have gotten into marriage and didn't count the cost of marriage? How many people got married and said that, man, this is a 50-50, and not realizing that they did the wrong math. You did the wrong math when you said it's 50-50. There is no 50-50 in marriage. I had that distorted view of marriage when I got married. I was just like, man, all I got to do is put 50 in and she put 50 in and we good to go. And that's the wrong marriage you're getting in. It's 1-to-1. 100 to 100 creates one. Half of half does not create one. Now in addition, but in marriage, you got to know what math you actually have to know what math you're using. So if we're using marriage as an example, then you've got to put your all into the marriage no matter what. How many of you that have gotten married? I know, right? How many of you that have gotten married didn't put in the whole and then was upset when the other person didn't put in theirs? See, your job as a married person is to put in everything. Jesus is talking about, look, if you're going to be a Christian, look, he didn't call them Christians because there were no Christians back then. There was no religion. It was, if you're going to be a leader, let's take a disciple. We're going to change that name to leader, because if you're going to be a leader, then you're going to have to forsake everything. He's saying you're going to have to count it all and realize that I don't need anything that I used to have. I don't need anything that I used to have, which is, this might hurt. I don't need my family. I don't need my family. I'm not saying that your family, you have to really just forsake them to the point where you can't do anything for them, but you don't need them for where you're going. They can come with you if they decide to do the same thing that you do. But what if they don't do it? Are you going to forsake yourself and not go? Jesus talked about this in his parables, where someone would say, hey, I'm going to follow you, Jesus. I'm going to come with you because you're the man, and and you've got the power, and I love to be around this power. And then what happens is but when he says, well, don't go home, let's go. And they say, I got to go home. Man, I've got to go home now, and I've got to go bury my father. I got to go home now to say goodbye. He's like, well, you're not fit for the kingdom. Anyone who does not forsake all, we're in Luke chapter 14, 28 through 33. That's the passage of the day. Here's the thing. Counting the cost is everything. Accounting for everything is what you must do when it comes to your life, which is everything, when it comes to your business, when it comes to your relationships, when it comes to your marriage, when it comes to your parenting skills, when it comes to your ministries, when it comes to whatever it is you're doing, you must count it up. You must say to yourself, okay, let me sit down. Like this morning I was sitting down and, I'm reading the word, and oh my goodness, the word is so inspiring to read, to read the wisdom of Solomon every single day. It's inspiring. It's super inspiring. I'm reading it. And he says in Proverbs 10, I believe 22, he says, the blessings of the Lord, it maketh rich, and it addeth no sorrow to it. Think about I think the NIV says something even more cool. It says the blessings of the Lord, it maketh rich, and it comes easy. Like it comes easy now. I want you to think about this. You don't have to work hard. Working hard does not produce in like an infinite amount of results, but the blessings of the Lord will scale your results at a higher level. I was recently talking to a client, and he was talking about how he, I like to be able to understand these strategies, these tax strategies, because I like to scale what I'm doing. See, and he's a young man. He's a young man. 25. I said, man, for a young man, you have wisdom, because you're thinking like a 50-year-old. You're thinking like somebody like myself who understands that, hey, you don't want to miss anything. You want to count it up. You want to plan now, even when you don't have. See, that's what the text was talking about. The text says at the very beginning, he says this. For which of you, intending to build a tower, sitteth not down first and counts the cost to see whether or not you could finish it? See, as we close today, I want you to ask yourself today, am I able to finish what I've started? Am I able to get to where I'm going based on what I have today? See, most of us, you might answer and say, man, I don't know if I have enough money. So that means that if you needed money to do something, that means you have to get the money. Well, how do you get the money? Well, I don't know how you get the money. I'm just saying you have to get the money. You must first sit down and figure out, well, what is it that you need? The worst thing that you can do is not know what you need. That's the worst thing you can do. At the beginning of this week, I had a huge challenge in front of me. It was big. Anybody ever looked in the mirror and says, oh my goodness, wow, everything's caving in on me? On Sunday, I could see that the stuff was coming in. I'm not going to get super specific, but I want to give you some cliff notes. And at the beginning of this week, I saw a problem, and this problem was pretty big. It was a big mountain, and that big mountain, had me wondering, man, Are we going to make it through? Am I going to make it through this week? Am I going to worry myself to death? And then the word that's in me came out of me. It says, but seek first the kingdom of heaven and his righteousness, and all the things will be added unto you. But then it also says, wait a second, don't worry about tomorrow, because tomorrow will worry about itself. Every day has enough trouble of its own. So all you can do is focus on the day at hand. And on Sunday, when I look forward to Friday, I says, there's power. There's a blessing of the Lord that maketh rich, addeth no sorrow to it. And at the end of the week, as that sun came down yesterday, and I shared this story with my wife. I didn't talk to her about it because I didn't want to worry her. And I talked to her. I says, look at what faith did. Not me. I'm just a man. I said, look at what faith did. Look at what the invisible power of God did for us. We're celebrating our 23rd anniversary. 23rd anniversary on Monday. We're going to spend a few days out of town hanging out. And I says, look at what he did for us. He thought about us. But it starts with something. What does it start with? Counting the cost. But here's the thing. Many of us get to the point where we're having a problem seeing. We're having a problem building that belief. We're having because we know that there's a gap. There's a gap between where it is we'd like to be and where it is we are. That's why it's important today. It's important today that you realize that your faith is everything. Accounting is everything. And right next to that is your faith, because your faith is what's going to prove. It's going to prove what it is that God's doing in your life. That's going to be the faith work. That's going to be the work that God puts in you. That's going to be the success that God shows of your life. But it's your faith that will help you to bridge that gap. Because when you go to count the cost and you see that there's a gap, you're going to say, well, if it's true that the blessings of the Lord, it maketh rich and addeth no sorrow to it, then I will believe that statement. I will put that statement to the test. So guys, today, count the cost. Know that, yes, you might be someone who believes, and maybe you've made the mistake of not counting. But today, realize that accounting is everything. But realize that once you count and there's a gap, you're going to need faith. You're going to need faith that moves mountains in uncertain times like today. Go to nextlevelfaithglobal.com. You can get this book. I think it's $18. We're also going to send you the audiobook. I believe the audiobook is still on there. And it's going to give you a framework. It's going to help you to get inspired about your faith so that you can become this person that has faith, that moves mountains, and that sees the gap in your accounting so that you can become the person that you were created to be. Guys, I thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the Account for Life podcast. My name is Jay Moore, the Healthy Accountant, helping you to account for your life. God bless. I'll see you in the next episode. Peace.
Thanks for joining us, listening friends. We are so glad you invested this time with us. Always remember, you only have one life to live, so live it to the fullest. This has been the Account for Your Life podcast with your host, the healthy accountant himself, Jay Moore. Until next time, make it a great day.